Let's f***ing roll. Good day, everybody. Welcome back to McBasket Studio here in FOCO, USA. You're listening to the SaltyMF Goat podcast. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about dog behavior, human psychology, coaching with a good friend of ours and the owner of Halo 9 Educators, Mark McEvoy. We're really glad to have him on. He's got some good insights on how to get your dog in order and probably your life in order. So, Mark, welcome to the show, brother.
All right, thanks. Canine. Halo Canine. Yeah.
Halo Canine. All right, my bad.
Dog is a canine.
Okay.
So.
All right. I love it. So Mac and I have known each other for probably about more than 15 years. So K9.
Probably more than that.
It's scary, man.
Yeah, it's been a long time because I moved here 23 years ago, and you're one of the first guys I met.
Yeah.
I mean, we were coaching.
Yeah, we have a big history. I'd like to talk a little bit about that later on in the show about so Mac and I coach Little League sports together. But so tell us about Halo K9 Educators. I know that, one of the things I really loved when you told me this story, and you and I have been in contact, so it's not like we haven't talked, but you were a corporate guy in the oil and gas business, and just kind of really kind of go-getter. And I'm just curious, how'd you get into training dogs? I mean, it's a great story. I mean,
well, I'm a coach by heart.
Yeah.
When I met Tammy, I went to school to be a teacher. My goal was, by the time I'm this age, I'm coaching at a professional level. Division I football, basketball, baseball. I've coached lacrosse, and I never played. So coaching's a huge part of me. I mean, I love it. I love teaching. I love coaching. That's really what coaching is. And yes, she asked me to get an economics degree. She says, you got to make money. Dude, you can't be a gym coach. And there was a part of me that says, yeah, you're right. So what I ended up doing is I ended up getting an economics degree, a management degree, and I came out and I kind of fell into the world of the regulated world of gas, power, coal. I worked for a utility called New York State Electric and Gas. And what I used to do is trade commodities, trade futures, trade day-to-day gas. And I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a lot of learning, a lot of stress. Aunt Millie's she's got to get her gas. If she doesn't, she'll freeze to death. And, so it was a really interesting career. I worked for Southern Company for New York State Electric and Gas for about 5 or 6 years. I got a promotion like every year, it seemed. And Southern Company, I used to do a lot of deals with them. They called me up and said, why don't you come down and live in Atlanta? You could trade for us. So I came down here, and oh, my God, what a great job it was. Come down here. I mean, you get to take people out to golfing and to the Super Bowl, World Series. You're trading high-volume dollars. I once closed a deal that was equivalent to $500 million. Changed the way that gas flows in the Northeast, sold a pipeline up to the Cape area so they were able to get more gas. So it was a great existence. I loved the culture of the energy industry. It was fun. It's a big industry, but it's small. Everybody kind of knows everybody. So I made a lot of friends in the industry. And we got wrapped up into that whole Enron thing. Where Enron, you remember Enron, they were huge, and people don't realize it, but they were cooking the books. And what happened is a lot of these rating agencies looked into that, and they started thinking that all these energy companies are probably doing what Enron did. And what happened is we spun off from Southern Company, and we lost our AAA plus or AAA rating. One of them gave us just a triple B or something like that, and then, of course, the rest of them followed suit. So what ended up happening at the end of the day is we had a situation where our investment grade was dipped by one, and then later another. And what happens is then you got to prepay for everything. You don't get credit. So now that cuts in your margins because you're always having to pay a premium for cash instead of just being allowed credit. So there was a failure at the executive level at Mirant. They tried to grow too fast, and they ended up filing for bankruptcy, and we hung around for another 5 years while they were reorganizing. It was great. I mean, we'd sit around, do nothing, play liar's poker. Hey, it's 12 o'clock. Let's go get a drink. And, we'd work half day. We got paid to do nothing for a couple of years, and it was fun. And then what I did is, once they moved to Houston, I didn't want to go. So I was like, I'm going to start my own business. And I ran into a couple of people that were really fired up about starting something. And I learned a really valuable lesson. You know, it's hard to go into business with people because a lot of times what I've found, at least with the partners that I chose, is they were lazy, or they wanted you to do everything, or they were not the most ethical guys in the world. So we looked at a couple of different venues, and nothing. I put a lot of time and effort and money into them, but nothing really panned out. And a big part of it was these partners I had. I really just didn't do a good job choosing them. So, and you know a lot of them are. We will keep it there.
That happens.
And they know who they are too. So what I ended up doing is I decided it was time. It was time to be an expert in something different. Now my kids started getting out of high school. And I coached for years and years, and God, I loved it. I mean, we coached baseball, basketball, football. I coached football for 22 years, including with you, and I didn't have a kid on the team. Just like you coached with me, you didn't have a kid on the team. We just loved coaching. And I really started to miss that. So I wanted to find a way where I could take coaching and the business acumen that I've developed, along with a fairly likable personality. I like to consider myself a reasonably bright guy, and make something that'll work. And that's kind of what happened. I ended up just kind of training dogs on the side, just doing it just to help people out. Yeah. And before I knew it, I was getting calls, and people were posting stuff on Nextdoor and this and that. And before I knew it, I started out doing it for free, working. I would go over and I'd work over to the vet's office, just kind of get familiar with dogs, because I had dogs at that point for 20 years, and I raised them great, except for my first one. I learned a lot of lessons. And what ultimately happened is I decided that I'm going to make a full-time career out of this. I'm gonna take all of my time and efforts and put it into this. So I just started out making very little money, doing it for free. I enjoyed it. I was paid very well at Southern Company, so money wasn't an issue. And when I started doing this, it started to grow, and I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of mistakes. And that's what you got to learn is, boy, you're going to make mistakes. Man, my hands got chewed up like you wouldn't believe. I got a thumb here. I don't paint my nails. He might, I don't. Okay. so I just started to realize that I have something here. And the phone kept ringing, and I kept giving myself a $25 and $50 raise. And before you knew it, I was blowing it out of the water, and I had a 4-month wait, 5-month wait. And so what I really did with zero overhead is I trained myself how to be a great dog trainer, but I took it from training dogs to any monkey can train a dog. I got to train people. Because that's what I do. That's what we do when we coach. We take little kids that are still pissing their pants, and we could teach them. I mean, seriously, we could take a kid pissing their pants, and we could teach them how to run a counter trap block on 3, right? You know what I mean? Where they can't not go to the bathroom in their pants. So taking really complex ideas and making them idiot-proof, okay, making them very understandable is all I do. So at the end of the day, I don't really train dogs. I'm so good at it, it takes me minutes to get a dog balanced, and then I got to train the people. And what I've learned over the years is training is temporary. It's not forever. Right. So the fact is, I can't move in with the person and live with them, right? Yeah. Their husband wouldn't like that. So they have to know what to do.
There's a few out there.
There's a lot of them that, yeah. So when I leave there, they now know what to do. But I train them for hours. And that's where I think the dog training industry is really messed up, because their training sessions are 45 minutes an hour, and they're just focusing on the dog. Well, the dog's the easy part. You've got to understand the psychology of a human in order to get them to be balanced so the dog can listen to them. And we can get into the nuts, and I can get into as much detail as you want, but that's how I started the business, simply by becoming an expert at something, not having to shell out really anything in overhead. Yeah. Think about it. And you can make a lot of money doing this, a lot of money.
Well, I mean, when you've been at this, what, like 5 years now?
Well, I don't know. Easily 5 years doing this, but I've really been doing it for 20 plus, 30, ever since I had my first dog. I've been training dogs forever.
It's funny though, because when you said that, I wasn't that shocked. Like I was like,
natural progression.
I was like, I mean, he's been around people coaching kids, not just kids that are, almost in college level. And it just made a lot of sense from the behavioral side. And that you say, I would think that, I know I have 3 dogs. I mean, and my dog, jumped on my chest and slept on my chest last night. It doesn't make my wife real happy, but like the reality of it is people are really anxious. You and I talked a little bit about this. They're anxious, they're nervous, and it's amazing to me how if I come home, my dogs know if I'm in a good mood or not. They know before
it's your energy.
Before if I come to the door and I haven't even engaged with them, they know. And I think that's amazing, that kind of instinctive, like, I don't know if it's an aura or whatever it is, the energy you're throwing off. And I think people overlook that, right?
Absolutely. The way that animals receive communication from us isn't with their big yaps, talking. When you're dealing with a dog that's stressed, overexcited, maybe nervous or fearful, and you're talking, that's one of the most stressful things to a dog is the human voice. See, when I meet with dogs, I'm silent. My energy. Now, again, let's talk about energy before people think I'm some kind of hippie pot smoking freak, right? Because energy is real. This is how animals communicate with each other, with their energy and their body language.
Yeah.
So when I meet a dog, I don't look at them, touch them, talk to them. I allow them to smell me. And what they smell is confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't smell fear, anxiety. They don't see me going up to them, coochie, coochie, coo, rubbing their belly. I allow them to smell me as a balanced animal, so they in turn will be balanced. Dogs are really just mirrors of what's going on inside of us. So, right now your energy would be, calm and relaxed. Your heart's, you're breathing deep. Okay, your glands aren't getting activated. Your muscles aren't tense. But when you start walking your dog, and I'm not really talking about you, but a lot of the people I work with, they see that Chihuahua coming down the street, yip, 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 and they know their dog is going to go batshit crazy. What happens to their energy? Oh shit! Here it comes, and they start choking the dog, and they get all tense. So what I really do is I'm teaching people how to be calm in a stressful situation. So I challenge them. I make them. Their dog that has killed other dogs, that has attacked other dogs, that has shredded kids or people. I make them do things that is out of their comfort zone, like working next to my dog, walking my dog where I'm not near him. And what it does is it builds confidence. So it isn't much like when you remember the kids that we took on our football team that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
What did we do? Well, I've always had a philosophy that you're only as good as your weakest player. Yeah. So we need to coach the crappy players up and spend a majority of our time with them. So that's really kind of what I do is I coach these people up and teach them that there's a different way than getting anxious and afraid, nervous. See, the human mind is very complex. We live in the past and we project the future. Animals just live in the now. So when your energy is calm and relaxed and you're breathing deeply and your glands aren't emitting a scent of fear and anxiety, okay, what happens is they can buy into it. They will. So in other words, I guess a good way to look at it is you're driving in New York City. There's a big difference between you driving the car in New York City where everybody's flipping you off, cutting you off. You got homeless people coming up to you trying to sell you a rose, spitting on your windshield and cleaning it. You're pulling your hair out. You're like, this really sucks. But if you call an Uber and you sit in the back seat and you got a beer in your hand, you don't give a shit about the package courier drivers, the middle fingers. You don't care about that stuff. So what I'm really doing is teaching the dog, go lay down in the back seat. You can't drive the car anymore because show me a dog that's driving a car in the human world. I'll show you a nervous, unpredictable dog.
Yeah.
So it's really about changing the dynamics of the human emotion, which can be complicated. But if you're funny like us, okay, I find half the time I feel like I'm a comedian in my in my show. I got a little shtick, and when I'm working with people because I'm trying to keep things light so they're not tense and nervous. Yeah. And then I look at them and said, "What the hell are you nervous about? Yeah. There's nothing to be nervous about. This is all on you." And I have found that literally 99% of the dogs don't need help. It's us. It's us.
And it's funny because I think it just goes back to. When you and I were talking offline about this before you came on the show, is confidence, like your confidence in making something happen or believing something happen or whatever. And it's like, I don't know about the animal side, but a kid side or a coaching side, you and I coach, I guess the same 22 years, is the greatest thing for me at the end of the year was that kid that really had no confidence and now has the confidence. And it wasn't because they didn't have, all the physical capabilities or mental capabilities. It was that lack in believing in themselves or someone else believing in them to make a difference.
Yeah.
And once, like, what was amazing to me, once a kid got that, it was a great, that was it. You know, I'll never forget, I don't want to talk too much I won't, isolate kids out. But the one kid when I was coaching with you, so nobody wanted him, but he was a great athlete. I knew he was a great athlete, and he was the kid that cried the 2 years before, and we turned the kid into a running back. And the guys, we had a coach, I guess, left us and went on another team, and we played them. And we had been building this kid up and saying, hey, man, you're faster than everyone. You just go over. And the kid scored 2 touchdowns to beat that team. And I'll never forget that coach coming over saying, I'm like, you didn't believe in him. We did.
Yeah.
That was the difference.
Yeah.
You didn't believe in him. We did. Yeah. And it was. So I'm assuming probably in any kind of human behavior, even starting a business. But I'm excited for you because I know that. I know you're successful whatever you do, but it's really neat to be able to do something you want to do on the timeline you want to do. So what's that like? Not having to go into an office and just kind of. I know you've been booked up 8 months. You've been booked like 8 months behind. So this guy's good, by the way. So I'm not gonna try to promote him too much because I don't know.
There's no such thing as too much promotion. Yeah. But that feeling you get, I get every day. And you know what they do? They tell their neighbors that I help them. Yeah. And then they tell their neighbors. So it's usually, that's what happens a lot is I work with a dog, the dog's out of their mind. It's not really the dog just needs a little correction. Yeah. Just like Kaysen, when he was acting like an idiot. You give him a little flick in the ear and say, hey, stop being a jackass. And all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, why didn't you say so? See, people don't know how to do that. Yeah. So once you show them, it builds that confidence in them. And confidence look, I remember being in high school. When I hit my senior year, there was nobody I felt could do anything better than me on a sports field, and and that's important. And when I talk to people about when people call me and say, "Hey, I need your help," I make sure they understand you're getting somebody that is going to be as good as you can find in this country, and there's a reason why. Very few people do what I do. Most people train dogs. Yeah, dog training is easy. I spend my time training people. Yep. And it's that confidence, and that's really what it comes down to.
Which is kind of important.
Yeah.
You do own the dog.
And I work with not just 22-year-old girls, okay? Yesterday I had an
poor guy. Poor fella.
No, I had an 82-year-old woman yesterday.
Tammy, what's going on here?
I had an 82-year-old woman yesterday, and you know how hard that is to build confidence in her. But sometimes we got a good mix where the dog isn't a big problem. Yeah. The problem you run into when you have somebody that really lacks confidence, and you have a real bad dog. That's when you run into problems. But very seldom do I ever need to see anybody more than once. So think about it. I get some of the worst of the worst. I get people traveling from all over the country to see me. I don't know how they find me. Yeah. I'm glad they do. But after every session, it seems like every single person says to me, that was a lot easier than I ever imagined. Because you know what I tell people when I go to see them? If it doesn't work, it's free. Yeah. There's not a damn dog trainer in this world that will ever say that. I don't know one that would. I don't care who you're talking about. That's how confident I am. Yeah. And I tell them, it's never happened. Nobody's ever not paid me. And I'll actually go one step further. I'm my worst critic. And you know what a kind of an anal perfectionist I can be with football. And if I didn't feel like the session went great, I'll knock $200-300 off. And they're like, no, I'm happy. I'm not. Yeah. But I put my I put my money where my mouth is. Yeah. And I do that every time.
Well, that's what, Mark was one of the, I would call it, he was a student of the film and the game. And so I was not. I was kind of a sporadic. Let's try this. Let's throw a bomb here. Let's do. So I was more sporadic.
Go for that 4th and 12.
But when Mark and I used to coach against each other with our older kids, and then when I had a break and I didn't have a kid that would play, I coached with him, and I'll tell you, it was. I probably had more fun then because he had the strategy, the film, the breakdown, which I wasn't going to have the discipline to do that. I was going to do whatever I want. So I really enjoyed that about you, and know that thoroughly. I think that's why it was really hard to beat you in sports, because you had thought of every.
Try to be prepared.
Yeah. You'd be prepared. Yeah. So, and that's I think that's awesome. So
it's that way in any job, though, right? You have to know what you do. You have to be an expert in what you're doing. And that's what I take a lot of pride in, is I feel like I am an expert. Like there is very little, and I know there's going to be, a lot of dog trainers will cringe when they hear this, but there's very little I feel like I can learn from dogs now. Yeah. I feel like I've really mastered a vast majority of them. You're always going to learn. You're always going to run into that crazy one. But for the most part, they're very simple creatures. Yes, no, black, white. There's no gray area.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. We're all gray area.
Well, we overthink things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we actually think, the dog is not human. I mean, no matter what. I mean, and people want to equate, well, you might be talking to your dog about what you did at work. It doesn't know what the hell you're talking about.
No.
So, and people are they overthink it, and they need to realize that it is an animal, and conditioning animals has a lot to do with, just like you said, your behavior, your feelings, your anxiety. And I don't think, like, most people don't really even bring that up or say it.
Mm-hmm.
They're focused just on the dog.
Yeah, and I like to tell people this all the time. We're not born dogs. We're not. So, which means we don't share the same instincts with them. Yep. But what we do is, when we're dealing with our dog, we're referencing human instincts and applying human psychology to a dog, which doesn't make any sense. The dog is just a derivative or a descendant of a wolf. We're a couple of genetic mutations away from being a wolf. Yeah. So I just don't believe God or Buddha or Mother Nature, whoever put this whole thing together, meant for you to live with 3 wolves in your house. Well, maybe you, but not most people. You know what I mean? It's just not a natural thing. Just like if you went to someone's house and they had a 10-foot alligator laying on a floor, you would say, that's a little bizarre. How is that this much different? See, dogs were meant to be raised by dogs in a feral environment. Yeah. Their default is feral. They weren't meant to be laying on an air conditioning vent in the summer. They're supposed to be out in the pack.
They're grateful for it, though.
Yeah.
Probably.
But so that's the thing that most people don't realize, and what we end up doing is applying human psychology. And let me give you, for instance, when Mikey was small, okay, let's say he's 4 years old, okay, and there's a thunderstorm outside, and he is nervous because it's loud. I mean, maybe a thunderbolt hit, maybe a quarter of a mile from your house, and it just rocks your house with that sound. What are you going to do to Mikey? You're going to go bring him over, put him on your lap, rub his back, squeeze him tight, and just tell him some bullshit like it's God bowling or something like that, and he's got nothing to be afraid of. And you're going to say, it's okay, buddy, and you're going to squeeze him tight, and he's going to relax. That's exactly what you should do. Yeah. But see, when a dog gets reactive from a thunderstorm, okay, dogs treat it more like the Three Stooges treated it when Curly got nervous. They cracked him in the face. Shut up. Okay, so when we grab a dog and say to him, hey, buddy, stop being so nervous. It's okay. It's just God bowling. You're basically telling the dog, good boy, I like when you're nervous. Yeah. Keep being nervous. Yeah, keep shaking. We're doing the wrong thing. Now, I have a dominant dog in my house and a couple of other dogs that are submissive to that dog. And when Harley, who's my 85-pound bulldog, he looks like he's on steroids. I got my old 47-year-old creepy female bulldog. When he jumps up because he's afraid, she goes right at him, and she corrects him. See, fear is unbalanced behavior. Overexcited is unbalanced behavior. But what do you do when Mikey just scores a touchdown? Hey, buddy! We encourage and reward overexcited, nervous behavior. Yeah. Now, you can do that, but excited behavior, but we have to do it more on our terms. Right. So there's, and again, I know we have a very finite amount of time. I can't get into the gist of how to do it, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is we nurture unbalanced behaviors. And unfortunately, we not only we nurture these unbalanced behaviors, but more times than not, most humans are unbalanced. Right. I mean, you think about what our country's been going through. Oh God, this country's a mess. I mean, it's a fucking miracle. All of us aren't in a straitjacket. I mean, think about it. I mean, between pandemics and economies doing this, and we got Russia, and it's just like. It's crazy. It's crazy. But people, and that's why I talked about earlier, looking into different things to help people cope with anxiety, and a big part of it is what I like to do is really build their confidence, just like we did in football, man. It's the same principle. My sessions are different. Most people will see a dog trainer come over and meet with you every hour, once a week. Right. I usually a 6-hour session. It's one session, but about 97% of the people I work with, and I get bad dogs, they just need one. Yeah. And the reason they need one is because I'm training them, but I'm also teaching them how to be balanced and being calm and confident. Yeah. No different than in basketball, football, lacrosse, baseball, any of those sports that we coached in the past. It's just a matter of really building somebody up, educating them, letting them know you got nothing to be worried about. And guess what? It's okay to make a mistake.
Yep.
You know, I didn't coddle Conrad when he got knocked on his ass. I said, dude, stand up, brush yourself off, and go after it. What's the most important play? The next play. No different than walking a dog. If you walk your dog by a dog and your dog reacts, what's the most important walk? Your next pass by. Okay? Let's ask them if we can pass by him again and fix it. Don't ignore it. And this is the problem with dog trainers. They tell people, ignore those behaviors. Or they say, never correct a dog. This is their answer. Never correct a dog. The dog will be mean. Most dogs I work with are already mean. The correction stops them from being mean. But there is and again, this is probably the perfect format for your line of clothing. But we live in a country where this is an $80 billion industry.
Wow.
And I don't mean to sound like I'm some kind of conspiracy theorist, but $80 billion in the dog industry, that's a lot of money. People pay a lot of money for their dogs. And I believe the people behind PETA and these large organizations, they want you to think that you should be 100% positive. They want you to think that you should be rewards-based only, ignoring bad behaviors. I'm sure you do. So you keep coming back and buying all your shit and buying all your medication 100%. And going and getting these special crates and jackets and all this stuff. When at the end of the day,
I know people that got their damn dogs on like medication, like antidepressants.
Oh, of course. That's what these behaviorists do. They'll train somebody for $400 an hour. They won't go within 15, 20 feet of the dog. They coach them from another room, and they'll say, this is what you do. Of course, that never works because the person's a mess. I have to work with people. And that's their answer. Their answer is always two things. Your dog needs more freedom, we need to medicate him. No, that's the exact opposite of what a dog needs. A dog needs less freedom, a dog needs more structure, and we do not need to be messing with their serotonin and dopamine
Sounds familiar,
levels.
like maybe people. that maybe our psychologists out there and psychiatrists ought to be listening to this show as well. Stop medicating everybody and give them some, real things to deal with. I mean,
there's a lot of things Mother Nature can produce that could take care of it. We don't need to go through Pfizer.
Exactly.
Johnson & Johnson. Most of that stuff.
How many dogs are wearing a mask? Do you recommend a mask for dogs?
Well,
not a muzzle, a mask.
A mask? What are you talking about? Well, for COVID? Oh, well, for a muzzle, people say, do you want me to put a mask on because my dog bites? And I'm like, well, I don't need the mask for me. Your dog won't bite me. But you may need a mask because you're nervous. And your dog might respond to that. And that's kind of going back to what you said. If somebody's got a high level of anxiety, you're triggering your dog with that heart rate. Your glands are emitting a scent of fear. And what happens is they smell that, they pick up on it, and they feel like, okay, my owner's weak, let me handle this. And then they got the Hannibal Lecter mask on because they're biting other dogs or people.
That is true, though. I mean, I think that, we're so bombarded, you're talking about, we're so bombarded with bullshit and the media and news, and everybody's so fearful and anxiety-ridden and whatever. But I think probably if we were at our true natural state, like a lot of this stuff would not be an issue because...
Brad, we never had dog trainers 40 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go.
People didn't buy them costumes and have them eat at the dinner table, throw freaking birthday parties for them. The dog
or
was
let
a
them
dog.
sleep on your chest.
And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but treating a dog like a dog is the way that you have to treat a dog because they're dogs. And when you treat them like humans, they're going to be unpredictable because it's confusing to them. Just like I would never treat a human like a dog. I would not put a dog or a human on a leash and walk them and tell them to poop on a yard. Okay? That's disrespectful.
Unfortunately, there's some weird shit going on. That's a little subset of whack jobs out there.
Yeah. But you have to treat a dog like a dog because that's what they are. And it's unfair to them if you're doing otherwise because they don't have the ability to rationalize. They don't. You can't look at a dog and say to them, if you bite another person, I got to go to the pound and you're going to get put down.
You're not getting a treat.
No, you have to correct them and say, don't do this anymore. But people are afraid to say what I'm saying, and this is why I do this. And I'm glad that we got a chance to do this because, one of the reasons I don't want to get too big, and I've had countless people want to work with me. I've had someone ask me if I want to do a TV pilot, stuff like that. The reason I don't want to, there are so many nut jobs out there. I will get death threats because I correct a dog. See, to me, the most barbaric thing you could ever do is let a dog do whatever they want. And the next thing you know, they're biting people and going after other dogs. That is barbaric. That is cruel to allow a dog to do that for years and years.
It's called accountability on the human side, which they just don't want the accountability.
Right. Or a lot of people, unfortunately, are fed the wrong information. When you go out on the internet, you're going to read stuff. 90% of the stuff that I'm talking about doesn't exist out there. It's all positive only. It's all all that 100% rewards based. Feel good.
It's feel
Rainbows
good
and butterflies, but that doesn't work. I mean, if your kid kicked a teacher in the shin at a parent-teacher conference, if you ignored it or gave him an ice cream cone, okay, and not corrected it, he'd probably take a swing at that teacher in a couple of weeks. You have to correct it, but people don't want to do that. And then when you correct the dog, you're called a dog abuser, which is silly. Because when I use a correction, 99% of the time, I tell people, too hard. I just tap. I use noisemakers, touch on the neck. Just because you correct a dog does not mean that there's any discomfort or pain. You know what I mean? You remember when I coached kids, the kids knew I was pissed off just by my body language.
100%.
That's all I had to do was look at them and say.
But it also is the same thing. It's like, you tie it back to sports. And I mean, you and I have 44 years plus coaching. So it'd be the same kid where you'd have a kid maybe that was blocking for another kid and he wasn't blocking and the kid would be getting hit behind him and getting hurt. And I would take the kid that wasn't blocking and I would move him to running back.
The ball.
And I would tell the kid that was just at running back, well, don't block for him. You're going to be right here, but you're not going to block for him. And I'll never forget a parent coming over saying, how could you do that? And I said, well, the lesson here is this is a team sport and football is a dangerous sport. And if you don't do your job or your kid doesn't want to be accountable for at least trying, that kid behind him gets hurt and maybe gets hurt pretty bad. So the lesson is that you're going to see what that kid has to deal with when you don't do what you're supposed to do. And guess what? Worked every time.
Yeah. You're holding them accountable.
Worked every time. It's not punishing. It's showing it's irrelevant. No, some kid he's a running back. Well, why should that kid have no one block for him and be put in an instance to where they're going to get hurt and your kid be coddled? And so I think that's why. Same kind of thing, accountability in whatever you're doing. If you own the dog, you have accountability in making sure that dog is, acting, it's somewhat normal, at least not attacking people. Or my neighbor next door to you, this guy's got some yappy dog, and everywhere I go by, he's a big old Jack guy, and he's got this little tiny dog, and everybody goes, yeah, and I'm just like, dude, this looks horrible on you. I mean,
not a good look, dude.
You look ridiculous. You get no value for being jacked, and you're letting that little dog yap like that.
At least get a rock. I mean, come on. My dog poops bigger than your dog. Yeah, it's.
Well, I've enjoyed the shit out of this, man, and I've got a couple stories. So, Mac and I always competed against each other before we coached together, and one year we had our team was getting better, but we weren't really that good. And Mac always had the one or two team in the league, and we found Mac in the second round of the playoffs.
Oh, never
and the whole week before, I was kind of texting him just because I had no pressure. I had no anxiety because we weren't expected to win. But we played, and it was a good game, and it was really tight. And the first overtime, Mac came out to the center of the field where we flipped the coin toss, and he wouldn't even talk to me. And I was just, come on, Mac, come on, bud, we're having fun. And he's like, and he wouldn't say anything. He turned on and walked out. The second overtime, we met in the field. He was all red, and he gave me the F-U. I said, hey, Matt, come on. He said, F-U, Banyas. But I thought that was so funny. But, it's funny how competition can even bring you closer together. And years later, we had a hell of a time. Mac was very disciplined. I was not. So one time we were in a playoff game when I was coaching under him. And it was 4th and 18. He's like, punt the ball, man. Get field position, punt the ball. And I said, no, I'm going to throw a bomb. He was so mad at me. And we ended up throwing a pass and getting a first down. And
by a pubic hair.
And he's still over there. We're arguing at the sideline screaming, and the ref comes over and he goes, guys,
you got the first down.
You got the first down. Let's move on. So I tell you,
the two stories I don't want you to tell, you always tell them, but that's good. The two, I don't like being reminded I lost the game, number one. And number two, I hate saying we really should have punted on 4th and 18, and you pulled a play out of your ass and you got the first down by this much, and you'll never let me forget it. But that is right. You know something? It built a lot of good memories and friendship.
Yeah.
They were the best days of my life.
Oh,
Coaching.
100%, man.
They were so much
I'd
fun.
go back to those decades, and I'll tell you, we went to coach a team one time, and against what I wanted to do. My youngest kid was not old enough to actually play, but they wanted us to coach, so they coaxed us into it. And the day before football started, the guy went out to dinner with me and my little kid. He's like, "Hey, Mikey, don't you want to play football?" And Mike's like, he said no the whole time, and he goes, "Oh, yeah, I really want to." And I was like, "Ah, shit." So I called Mac that night. I go, "Hey, dude, you're coaching with me. Start tomorrow."
Yeah, I had the choice. I mean, you coach with me.
But it was funny, the reaction. Brandy was in the stands, and we were down on the field over there at Lambert, and some guy comes in that remember. I mean, we were older then, so we'd been around a long time,
and we ran the park.
Yeah, and the
we
park.
used to be the president.
And some guy comes out and he goes, "Oh shit, is that Banyas of McEvoy out there?" Oh, he goes, "Oh, awesome, old school. We're gonna finally get some old school football over here." So it was. Mark's been a good friend, and check out Halo Canine Educators if you're having issues with your dog or you're having issues with your own behavior and don't know how to deal with your dog. I've known this guy a long time, and he's the real deal. So whatever he says is he does what he says he's going to do. So, man, anything you want to close to the people?
Man, but I can tell you right now, I'm going to start promoting your shirts. I love them. I got it. Right? It took me a minute, but I got it. I was going to wear that. You gave me one of those, a black one, but I was like, I got to try to keep this PG-13 so I can put it on my Facebook page.
So, yeah, I was a little reserved. I didn't drop as many F-bombs. But, yeah, so this is our independence tea. A lot of people, the old-timers see it, and they're like, "You don't love America?" I'm like, you're missing the point. It is we love America. We're telling you to F off. But anyways, well, hey, thank you. You guys are listening to the Salty MF Go podcast at the McBastard Studio here in Foco, USA. We've had Mark McEvoy with Halo Canine Educators. Check them out. What's your webpage or
I don't
YouTube?
even do a webpage.
Don't you do YouTube?
I can't do a YouTube page right now. I'll get too popular. So I'm just doing Facebook, and I have an Instagram page. So it's just Halo Canine Educators. You'll go there. My reviews are on there. I've gotten well over 100, and I've never gotten under 4 stars. Nobody in this day and age, that's a miracle. I've got a couple hundred reviews online. I've never seen 4 out of 5.
I've got a lot of people. I got a lot of people that don't like me.
You got a lot of ones. Yeah. I think people don't like me when I show up, but by the time I'm done, they get it. And they're like, "Okay, you were right. I just had to see things differently." So I've been pretty fortunate as far as reviews go. But just have that Facebook page. That's more than enough for me. I couldn't edit a web page.
All right, well, so you're not going to hear that much in business where everybody's scrambling to get a TikTok account and YouTube account. It shows you that Max does a good job, and he doesn't really need to advertise out there. So for all you people that are aspiring to start a business or athletes, always be accountable, always be confident, and be educated on what you're doing, and life should be good. Let's go.